I'm here in our Chibayawa Satellite Clinic today, and this place is a special place. I feel like in some ways this room is a holy room. This is the room where I learned about delivering babies. This is the room where I've seen miracles take place, and I've also had some of the most painful and tragic moments of my nursing career happen in this room. And so I wanted to share some of these pieces of equipment with you and how they came to be here in this little outpost clinic in rural Kenya. When I first moved to Kenya, my background was as an emergency room nurse and a family nurse practitioner working on Skid Row in downtown Los Angeles. And so I often joke that my population was adult men. I took care of veterans who were primarily adult men, and then I took care of homeless people who were primarily adult men. And when I moved to Kenya, I came to this clinic, was my first posting, and asked, how can I serve? And I was told we need someone to run the mother baby clinic. And I was like, oh, okay, let me blow the dust off of my mother baby books from school and start diving into mother baby. And so I actually learned how to deliver babies here in Kenya. And one of the things that the nurses taught me is that there's typically, in a clinic like this one nurse on duty to do the delivery. And so that nurse has to take care of the mom and the baby and anything that could go wrong in the process. And they shared with me, if a baby has troubles, we have to focus on the mom. We can stimulate the baby, we can suction the nose, but there's not much more that we can do. We're a rural place. Half the time we don't even have electricity. Actually, when I moved here, there was no electricity. And we don't have a way of putting babies in incubators or on ventilators. So if you can't do anything, you have to focus on keeping mom safe. And it sounded terrible to me, but with my background in adult medicine, everybody that I had ever resuscitated had wound up on a ventilator, in the ICU, or they didn't survive. And to think about not having access to an ICU, it kind of made sense to me because I didn't work with a lot of babies when I first moved here. And it kind of made sense to me that we wouldn't be able to resuscitate babies. And so after about a year of working here, thankfully I didn't lose any babies during that first year, but after about a year, I had an opportunity to go and get some specialized training in resuscitation. And I thought, well, I'm now involved in the delivery of babies, I probably should go get that training. And the first thing they said in the class I attended is that 50% of babies that have difficulty breathing when they're first born, if you give them a little bit of positive air pressure and you warm them up, they will breathe immediately on their own without further intervention. And I remember just getting chills and realizing that babies in rural areas were being put to the side when they had at least a 50% chance, maybe even higher chance, of surviving with just a little bit of intervention. And so they taught us how to use these bags that we call an ambu bag, and how to just put that on the baby's face and put some oxygen right into their lungs and kind of pop those lungs open. And so I came back and I said, we are buying these and we are getting these and we're going to start resuscitating babies. The other key thing is warming the baby up, and we obviously were in a very rural setting with a very limited budget, and we didn't have money for baby warmers and incubators. So I sat down with a local carpenter and I showed him pictures and said, let's make a unit that we can save the babies with. And so we wound up with this to be our local warmer. We actually have a space heater that we have to turn on and turn off so that we don't make the place too hot. So I usually put a family member or a nurse in charge of controlling that we don't get too hot, but we make sure we have some warmth for the baby. And then we also had a generous donor in America who helped us get oxygen condenser that actually takes room air and makes oxygen out of it. So we brought this machine in so we could start providing oxygen to the babies. And I just want to share that within the first year, we saw a more than 40% drop in mortality for the area, which was incredible. And seeing that babies that previously would not have survived were being resuscitated. And I was able to jump in here and start bagging babies and see them come around and see them survive, which was huge. And as we've grown, we have seen that there are babies that have very minor issues. All they need is a little bit of pressure and they need a little bit of oxygen, but we also have babies that actually do have more serious things going on. And those babies now we're able to keep alive, but we don't have those incubators and we don't have those ventilators and we don't have that intensive care unit. And so just this year we've had a situation where we were able to resuscitate and help with 2 situations that had some very difficult results for us as a team. We had a baby who was born prematurely, significantly prematurely, and was delivered right in this room at probably around midnight, 1 in the morning, and we had a neonatologist in America on the phone with us, talking us through her delivery. And when she was born, we had to give her warmth, we had to give her oxygen, we had to give just a little bit of extra pressure, but she actually was breathing independently, and it was a huge victory for our team. We were able to load her up in our ambulance and have a nurse go with her to the closest neonatal intensive care unit, which is more than an hour away, and it is the only neonatal intensive care unit for multiple counties, not just our county, but multiple counties. And there are so many babies in that unit that there are often 3 or 4 babies per incubator, and they have to prioritize who gets the ventilators, who gets the CPAP, who gets the extra interventions, because it's just not enough to go around. And we had such hope for this baby that we transferred. And after a few days in the intensive care unit, we heard that her condition had deteriorated, which was very shocking to us because she had been so stable. And not long after, we actually learned that she had passed away. And it was a really tough one for our team because we were part of the victory of seeing her breathe, seeing her survive, seeing a hope for her and her mom, and thinking that we had succeeded. And then finding out that we had not succeeded because the care she was transferred to was not able to provide the adequate care that she needed. And I personally was so invested in the case, I said, I need to be there when we bury this baby. And they called me as they were on the way from the hospital, from discharging the mom, and had the baby in a little blanket that we had wrapped her in when she was born. And so I recognized the blanket when they got out of the car carrying a dead baby in this blanket. And then there was the realization, we're going to bury her, but what do we bury her in? And it was pouring down rain. Everybody was getting soaked. There was no casket available. We found a cardboard box. And this precious little baby got put in the box and buried in the pouring rain. And we were a small handful standing there, and all of a sudden everybody looks at me. Michelle, can you say a few words? Can you basically run this funeral? And it was such an intense moment and such a moment of sadness in standing there and weeping with this mom that we had just days before told her, we did it, we saved the baby, she's gonna be okay. And so it was a big hit to our team. And now, just now, we're coming off, today is 1 week that we're coming off of another loss, which once again, we had a victory here in this very room here in Chihuahua. We had a baby born here who had Down syndrome and probably had some serious heart defects. And she initially was breathing on her own and doing okay, and then after not long started having breathing difficulties. We wound up bringing her to our resuscitation unit and warming her, giving her oxygen. We were on the phone with a neonatologist and pediatrician in America, again, talking us through more advanced care that we could give, and knew that we needed to get her emergency, more advanced care. We were doing the emergency care. She needed to be admitted to an intensive care unit. And as we got her transferred, her name was baby Ivy. She actually had a respiratory arrest in the car on the way, in the ambulance on the way, and was revived by our staff member. And we saw that her saturations, when we gave her good oxygen, her blood oxygen saturation was coming up to 97. Without it, her oxygen had been in the 60s and 70s, and so that oxygen was really doing something. And we knew that she probably was going to need to have heart surgery, but I also know heart surgeons that do pediatric open heart surgery, and I knew that we could do that. This girl had a fighting chance. And so we fought with Ivy, and we fought for Ivy. And we got her transferred to the intensive care unit and started calling for updates. And The next day, got an update, she's not doing very well. And the next day, got an update, her saturation's in the 40s. And I thought, why is her saturation in the 40s? Why have they not intubated her? Why have they not put her on a ventilator to help her breathe? And I asked, is she not on a ventilator? Is she not on oxygen? And one of the nurses actually made a side comment, we're just waiting for her time. We're just waiting for her days. And our nurse that had transferred her said that the minute that they walked into the hospital, somebody had commented, oh, it's a mongoloid baby. And we just saw that as the decisions are made, and I know they are very hard decisions, and I know that there's times I stand in that situation where I have to make hard decisions. But as the decisions are made about resources, this mongoloid baby wasn't worthy of the resources. And the next day, we buried this little girl in my next door neighbor's house. She was my neighbor in this community. And we stood in the dark by flashlight and by car headlights to illuminate the area so we could bury her. And the thing that kills me about it is that this shouldn't have happened. I have losses that I understand, that are hard, but that I can grapple with and I understand. But these two losses that we've had this year, they shouldn't have happened. And I found myself, I was at the hospital when I got the news about how badly she was doing. And I walked outside and I just stood and looked over the landscape in the area. And I thought, I'm so angry. I have so much anger, I don't even know what to do with it. And I sat there just thinking about my anger in that moment. And as I processed my anger, I also thought, you know, the Lord gives us these emotions. Anger is not a sin in itself. And the Bible even says, be angry and don't sin. And I thought, so what do I do with this anger that's productive? And I realized I need to keep fighting. I need to fight for these babies. And we need to channel that anger into something positive so that this doesn't keep happening. That we have our own neonatal intensive care unit, and that if I deliver a baby here or one of my nurses delivers a baby here in this outpost clinic that's not a hospital, it's an outpost satellite clinic, if we deliver a baby here that has problems, that we can take that baby somewhere where I know he or she can get high quality care. And I stand here believing that the Lord gave us this vision for a purpose, and that we can do more. And I just would invite you to be a part of that purpose. Sometimes people feel like if I can't write a $10,000 check, it's not even worth donating. Where does my money go? What does it do? And I will tell you the backbone of our support is from individuals and not from big corporations. It is people who feel moved to stand with us. And we have donations that go from $10 a month to donors that have cut $100,000 checks at one time. And so it really varies. But I would say our general operating fund is run on the $25 to $200 per month gifts. And so your gifts do make a difference. And I would just encourage you to think about investing in something that is making an eternal difference and is truly helping to save lives. So thank you for taking the time to go through these stories with me. I know they're hard stories, but they're stories that show us in some ways how far we've come and also how far we still have to go. And I see light, I see hope in where we're going. So thank you.